This is DW News Africa. Coming up on the program, Sudan's 1,000-day milestone of war with a grave human cost. Those who escaped the embattled city of Fasher reveal the horrors they witnessed. It comes as the UN describes the city as a massive crime scene. Also coming up, high stakes and heavy expectations at the Africa Cup of Nations as the continent's giants battle for a place in the final. And the Birdman of Nairobi will meet a street survivor dedicated to nursing the city's injured bird life. Hello and welcome to DW News Africa. I am Tomi Oladipo. Friday marks 1,000 days of nightmare for the people of Sudan since the war there began in April 2023. Fighting between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces has triggered one of the world's worst humanitarian catastrophes. The scale of the devastation is laid bare in Fasher in North Darfur, which fell to the RSF after an 18-month siege. Now, a UN team recently gained access only to find what they describe as a crime scene. We'll hear from the UN's lead coordinator on the ground shortly. But first, DW's Sela Oneko and Conan Tippen have tracked the exodus to the camps in Tawila near Fasher, where survivors of the siege narrated their ordeals.
Mohammed shows us his scars, the results, he says, of torture at the hands of the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. We can't verify his story, but he says he was beaten, dunked in sewage, and forced into hard labor. We concealed his identity for his own safety. The RSF caught him while he was trying to flee the city of Fasher after it fell in late October.
The
RSF captured me around midnight. It was east of Shagra town. There was shooting, and they killed about 140 people from our group. There were still about 24 to 46 of us.
Mohammed was one of thousands of Fasher residents heading for the nearest displaced persons camp in Tawila. But many never made it. Images from Yale University Research Lab show the RSF built sand barriers around the besieged city. People trying to flee were trapped there and massacred. The RSF posted this video showing dead bodies and burning vehicles. Mohammed says he witnessed scenes like this himself. He recounts how the RSF kept him prisoner for a month and interrogated him. Once they determined he was a civilian, they demanded a ransom for his release.
We stayed 4 days in Mina. They tortured us. On the second day, they told us to call our families. They said, "We'll give you the phone to call your families." I tried to call my brother, but he didn't pick up. The second day, he picked up, and they demanded a ransom from him. They wanted 11 million Sudanese pounds. They tried to negotiate, but in the end, they paid it.
That is the equivalent of 3,000 euros. The RSF capture of Fasher involved some of the worst fighting of the Sudan war. The United Nations estimate that more than 100,000 people have fled to places like Tawila. Many of the women who've escaped report sexual violence. The aid agency Doctors Without Borders says it recorded over 1,000 cases of sexual violence in Tawila last year alone. Wisal Ismail is a protection officer with a local NGO supporting survivors. She has heard stories of rape committed by both the RSF and the Sudanese armed forces. She also heard of widespread extortion.
There were 7 women and 10 men at a school in the Kani area. They had their hands behind their backs. They were beaten and tortured. They were asked to pay a large sum of money for ransom. All the women in the school were sexually assaulted by the security forces.
The small support center her organization runs offers counseling and a space for the women to gather and cook. She wishes she could provide them with more psychosocial and medical support. While many women are too ashamed to report their abuse, some are willing to speak out. This young mother of two remembers how she and a group of women had left the house to buy food for their families. On their way back, they were confronted by the RSF, then beaten and raped.
They forced us and threatened us with their weapons. They told us, if you don't open your body to us, we will kill you. They did all of this against our will.
Eventually, they released her. When she had the chance, she fled the city with her children, but had to leave her husband behind. Ismail wants two things to happen. For the survivors of Fasher, she wants support so that they can rebuild their lives. And those responsible for the rape, torture, and extortion, she wants to see them held to account and brought to justice.
Denise Brown, UN resident and humanitarian coordinator, joins us now from Khartoum in Sudan. It's good to have you with us, Denise. Now, can you tell us more about what you saw in Fasher?
The team that went into Fasher a week ago, we were very concerned about their movements. So I only allowed them to go in once we had guarantees of safe passage from the RSF, going in, moving around the town and coming out. Because it's been an area of intense fighting for more than 2 years, we are very concerned and remain concerned about unexploded ordnances, landmines, anti-tank mines. So their movements, we limited their movements to only a certain part of town where we knew people were moving and remaining on asphalt roads, so we knew what we were driving. Team was able to visit the Saudi hospital, and if you remember in October, the Saudi hospital is the site of an alleged massacre of more than 450 people. So the team did go. There are medical personnel there, though we didn't spend a lot of time talking to them. There were very few patients, and the building was in surprisingly good shape. And but remember, between the time of what happened at the end of October and when our team went in was almost 2 months, because it took us that long to negotiate safe passage. There are basically no supplies left at the hospital, no antibiotics. We did not see thousands of people, but again, we were in one part of town. There were hundreds of people, all of them displaced. Fasher is a big town. It was 1 million people before the war started in April 2023. So those people who remained moved from one side of the town to another, looking for safe shelter. Some of them live in abandoned buildings, others living outside under whatever protection they could find, a piece of plastic sheeting, a blanket, no access to clean water. And we're very concerned about that because of the cholera outbreak in 2025, which was rampant in Darfur and comes from lack of access to clean water and lack of sanitary conditions and no toilets.
Right.
Now, our aid was blocked for more than 500 days, so there's no functioning economy. But there was a little market opened with some few items grown locally. That's a high agriculture producing area normally, so tomatoes, onions, potatoes, but also very small packages of rice and biscuits. We didn't have time to get prices, but I'd be surprised to know that anyone would be able to buy that because the economy is totally dysfunctional.
Right.
So basically, it's a ghost town, from what we could see, with very few people remaining in a very difficult situation.
Right. And did your team get direct access to these civilians?
Yes, absolutely. We worked on a series of conditions that needed to be met before we went in. 1 was safe passage, 2 is movement without armed militia around us, and 3, visiting the areas that we had decided were important for us to visit. So there were always people at a distance, but never directly interfering. But we're not relaying what people shared with us because we had to leave them behind. We will go back in, we're working on that, but we left them behind, unprotected. So what they told us will remain confidential for the moment, and the photos we took, we're also not circulating in the interest of protecting the people who were there.
Understood. There have been these sort of community or charity kitchens that provide food to the public. I don't know if you saw them operating, and how are they going about getting food to people, and are they even sustainable at this point?
Well, the local organizations have done an absolutely fantastic job and stayed right to the bitter end in Fasher. In fact, launching one of those community kitchens just a week before the attacks on the 27th of October. Then it became impossible to continue it. We are looking at what needs to be done next. It's still an area controlled by militia. We're not about to take in huge supplies and leave them behind for them to be confiscated. So we're looking closely at and consulting with the community and with the local organizations, who know these areas, who understand how things work, what we can safely take in for people that will remain in their hands. So supplies in the hospital are number one. But also we saw a number of unaccompanied children. Basically, that means children without family members. Either they've left or they've been killed. It's totally unclear. So we're taking in some nutritious supplies that will be a benefit to them. So small amounts of well-targeted supplies for people who remain in that community.
So I'm taking it you've got no guarantees of safe passage for any humanitarian supplies?
I'm not negotiating that at the moment. I don't think that's the priority, large-scale humanitarian assistance, when we're still not sure of how many people are there. But what we did see is people need access to clean water is actually number one priority. 2 is supplies in the hospital. And 3, again, those nutritious supplies. But when our team goes back in, they'll spend a longer time there, have greater movements, and we're able to come back with an even better idea this time. We have to take this step by step. As we've said repeatedly, Fasher is a crime scene. It's a town. It's an entire town where we believe thousands of people were killed. So we will take this one step at a time for everybody's safety.
And what did the RSF say? Did they sort of provide any transparency regarding their actions there?
That work is ongoing in parallel to what the humanitarian community is doing. But the human rights part of the United Nations is working on that, conducting numerous interviews with those who were able to flee, triangulating that information. Already at the time of the incident, we were very vocal about the atrocities that we firmly believe took place in October in Fasher. But we need more detail, more granularity, and more precision about what exactly happened. The killings, the summary executions, the sexual violence. There's already a pattern of sexual violence in this war. So we will wait for that report to come out. We have to do it justice because the people of Fasher deserve justice and accountability for what happened there.
I'm just wondering, in terms of investigating or even documenting some of these things, how can that be done efficiently in terms of getting your monitors or other monitors in to do their work properly?
Well, there's different parts of this, and one is what people tell us, what we're able to document through the interviews from those who fled, and that is ongoing. People have fled to many different locations. I'm on my way to Al-Daba tomorrow, and many thousands of people fled Al-Fasher and other parts of Darfur for Al-Daba. Now, actually getting into Al-Fasher to look for the remains of what may happen, of graves, of other pieces of evidence, that's going to be much, much more difficult. So we'll start with what we can so that this horrendous episode in the history of this war is documented and not forgotten. But again, nothing easy here.
In terms of keeping this story in the eye of the world, considering there's a lot going on elsewhere, help us or remind us of if you can, the scale of the humanitarian need across the country, even as the fighting continues in Sudan.
Look, we are really struggling here. This country is the size of France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. We're only moving around within the country by road. It's very difficult, cross-line. We also do cross-border. We have more than 10 million people who've been displaced by the war. over time, but that continues to add. We continue to add more people to that. We know that more than 100,000 fled what happened in October in Fasher, not just from the town, but surrounding areas. So nothing is static. We also have people in the Kordofans around Kadugli, where we have a similar situation, who are fleeing. So I say 10 million. It's going to increase from 10 million. And right now we are trying to reach 18 million people in this country with humanitarian assistance, life-saving humanitarian assistance. I've been all day today visiting malnutrition centers for severely malnourished children, all of them displaced, all of them suffering. So as long as this war continues, the needs are going to increase, and we're 35% funded. Right. So we're doing what we can, but what we can is not nearly enough.
And on that note, Denise, if you can just say briefly, how can the outside world do better to act on Sudan?
On Friday, we will mark 1,000 days in this war. I think we've seen very little global mobilization for the people of Sudan, despite the pattern of atrocities, despite the pattern of sexual violence that the women and children of this country face, despite people having to flee their home in the millions. So we would like, and I spoke with many women today and asked them what they wanted me to tell you. And it's that, please consider us, was their modest message. What is going on that you're not paying attention to what's happening in the Sudan? And the scale of the atrocities is absolutely shocking. That's their message from the women that I met today to the people who are listening to your show.
Okay. Well heard. I hope that message resounds. Denise Brown, the UN's humanitarian chief in Sudan, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you, too. Thank you.
The Africa Cup of Nations is well into its high-stakes knockout phases, with just over a week of the football tournament left in Morocco. The host nation continues to cement its status as a global footballing hub, already looking toward co-hosting the 2030 World Cup. But for now, the focus is the present. The road to the final is narrowing as the remaining giants battle to lift the silverware in Rabat. Right, for more things AFCON, let's check in on my colleague Ali Farhat from DW Africa, who's on standby in Rabat, Morocco. Good to see you, Ali. What are your personal highlights so far in the tournament?
There are many, actually. I would say the atmosphere during the games of Morocco, of course. I would also say, for example, the way Ivory Coast and Nigeria have been playing so far. And also, of course, my personal highlight would be Sudan scoring a goal against Senegal. That was really my personal highlight.
A moment of hope and unity for a country in civil war. Let's take a listen to their coach.
Everybody had to put his gun down, celebrating for about a week, which for me is something that football can change everything in this world. So I'm praying that the war ends totally so that everybody can come back home and revive the country again.
Some inspiration in the face of adversity. From the Sudanese people you've spoken to, what does this mean to them?
I mean, the Sudanese people I met are exactly like the player. They are, most of them, expats, and all these people here representing Sudan on the pitch or in the stands, like they were here for their people at home. And when Sudan scored against Senegal, it was like really a big highlight for them, of course. And after the game, when I spoke with some of them, they were like, Sudan can do things, can show things, and they hope that in the future they will have more positive things to show in a country at peace.
Right, and let's talk about the hosts, Morocco. They seem to have made good use of the tournament and used it as a platform for themselves.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this tournament is a preparation for the World Cup 2030. I mean, and you see it everywhere here. I mean, of course, we talked a lot about the stadiums, which are really modern and built in no time. But there are also other infrastructure which are really impressive. Like, for example, the high-speed train line from Casablanca to Tanger. It's really impressive because, yeah, it's a high-speed train, and it's the first on the continent, and that's really something which is going to change things, especially if the line is going to be like going from the south to the north, basically.
And speaking of change, there's been controversy over CAF, that's the Confederation of African Football, proposal to move AFCON from a 2-year cycle to a 4-year cycle. Tell us more about that.
The people which are pro-reform, let's put it like this, say that if the event is more rare, it's going to generate more revenues, for example, and add probably more competitivity. The people which are against this reform say it's going to be problematic because African football need this tournament, need this AFCON to develop every 2 years. But also, let's not forget that financially, the AFCON is the tournament which brings the most money to the CAF and then to the federation. So now the AFCON has been moved to 4 years, to every 4 years, and now you just have to see which kind of revenue the CAF can generate for the federation in the meantime.
One thing that can be generated from AFCON is goals. Let's take a listen to Amanda Dlamini, former South Africa captain and football analyst.
That hard work needs to be complemented by, I guess, what we call it a Midas touch or a Midas finish in front of goal. And you have to put the ball in the back of the net. And that is just composure. And we're looking forward to see who actually gets to take the golden boot of the tournament.
Ali, who do you think has that composure to rack up the most goals and take home the golden boot?
I mean, you have some stars which already have 3 goals. For example, Ademola Lookman or Victor Osimhen or Mohamed Salah, for example. But I would go for a dark horse like Amad Diallo of Ivory Coast because he has been really, really good in this tournament. And he's basically the one who always make the decision for Ivory Coast. So I can imagine Amad Diallo being the top scorer at the end of the tournament.
Interesting. We'll look forward to seeing whether your prediction comes true. Ali Farhat from DW Africa, thank you for that update from Morocco.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Now, if you're walking through Nairobi and see a man with a hawk perched on his head, that's Rogers. He once lived on the streets himself, but today he's turned his home into a DIY hospital for the city's injured birds. Rogers is stepping in to provide rehabilitation for the wildlife, even if his neighbors think his bond with these animals is a bit otherworldly.
Meet the Birdman of Nairobi. Rogers Olu Maguta, once homeless, now shares his home with a flock of birds that he rescued around the city. Maguta did not study conservation or know a lot about birds, but living near Lake Nakuru National Park sparked his interest.
So at my leisure time, I used to sneak inside, so to see the birds, to watch the water. So that's when my passion of rescuing and taking care of the birds started.
Maguta says he has since rescued more than 20 species of birds and nursed them back to health. They were often injured or undernourished.
I've rescued the black kites, I've rescued the crows, the African pied crow, I've rescued the owl, the barn owl. I've rescued the marabou stork and the pigeons.
Birds in this area face many threats to their survival. Habitat loss, disease and injuries from traps or telephone wires occur frequently. But there are only a few rehabilitation centres that can help wildlife in danger. Conservationist and birdwatcher Paul Gacheru agrees that there is a critical shortage.
In Nairobi, we only have one rehab centre for birds, which is in Karen. There is the animal orphanage, which is looking at mainly mammals and large mammals which are taken to the animal orphanage, which is managed by Kenya Wildlife Service. And you have another rehab center which is in Fasher and Soisambu for birds.
Saving the birds is no easy feat for Maguta. He has to find enough food for them to eat and enough space to shelter and recover. Even when he succeeds, people accuse him of sorcery.
Most of the people, when they see me with these birds, they think that I'm using supernatural powers. Yeah, so most of them, they think that I'm a sorcerer, I'm practicing witchcraft.
Maguta's new hope is to open an official shelter so that he can help more birds get back to where they belong, in the skies of Nairobi.
Lovely there. Well, that's it for now, but be sure to check out our other stories on our website and on social media. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.